So we get to being able to begin to differentiate. After all this information is accumulated, we begin to classify things. So level of level of severity is mild to severe. The tipping point for severe is when that bridge collapses. Oh, I thought I had another picture of it. So the transition bridge is completely collapsed and they won't go anymore. A mild reaction includes the child is still going back and forth, but they're somewhat reluctant, kind of whining on those days. Maybe the child begins to tell the parent they're resisting that, you know, mom said I needed to make sure that you don't have any beer in the refrigerator. Mom said I need to make sure you get me up on time. Dad said that you should not be taking us out to play or out to have ice cream this weekend, that you need to save your money because you can't pay your bills, that sort of thing. A moderate reaction is where they begin to fight a little bit more against spending time with the parent. They may begin to shorten their visits at this point. They find reasons to go home early or to come late. The parent begins to sense that the child wants to spend less and less time with them because they are spending less and less time with them. And again, the severe reaction, we designate a severe reaction once the child completely refuses to go anymore. Oh, there it is. No more. Can't cross anymore. Okay. Again, this slide is a repeat. I just want to remind you that when we are differentiating, we're looking at what is the alienation reaction in the child, mild, moderate, or severe. And when we're explaining that reaction, we're looking at what are the parental behaviors that cause that. And the parental behaviors that cause it help us determine whether we have a justified rejection, a hybrid alienation case, or a pure alienation case. A justified reaction is going to, TP means targeted parent, so also rejected parent. Could be completely non-responsive to any suggestions about how they need to work on themselves. They might refuse therapy. They stay stuck in the fact that they are victimized by the alienating parent, that it's all the alienating parent's fault. There could have been true domestic violence where children were hurt or where a parent was hurt. That would lend some amount of justified reaction in the child. Blame and projection is fixed. That's just what I was saying, just that they are determined that there is nothing they did to help to make this situation happen. They react very negatively to the reactions in the child when they're transitioning, even when they're told to tone it down, or even when they're told to do something different. They can't replace, they don't have the flexibility within their parenting repertoire to replace the way they're managing things with a new approach. A hybrid alienation situation is where the targeted parent shows some understanding for their own role and what's going on. And even if, I'll say, the targeted parents I work with are more than willing to jump through any hoop. I mean, they're desperate, right? I mean, this is a sign of a targeted parent who is willing to work. They will do anything. They are so lost. They are looking for guidance from somebody who can make sense for them about what is going on. And if I say, I want you to go to therapy, they're there. If I say, I want you to take a parenting class or read this book, they've got it done in a week, right? So there's a willingness to, even if they do feel like the majority of what's happened was caused by the alienating parent, they have no qualms about doing whatever it is they need to do to make things better. So another reason for a hybrid case might be that the child is just recently withdrawn, right? So if you catch the child, maybe they haven't been for, 3 months, or they're having a lot of trouble going for the last 3 or 4 or 6 months. If you catch it early enough, you still have a situation that could, as long as the alienating parent, both parents are willing to do their work, you still have a situation that you might correct within a hybrid situation, and which usually means you can do it without a transfer of residence. The alienating parent in this situation is able to understand that they need to change some of their behaviors. I often talk about my work with parents as being, there's a group of parents where if I say, what you did was wrong, what you did was hurtful to your kids, and this is how it hurt them, and you need to stop, then they listen and they make changes. It might not be perfect about it. It might still have a lot of fears about whatever it is they're fearing between the child and the parent, but they'll try. A pure alienation case is where the alienating parent is completely non-responsive to intervention and assistance, and refuses to pull back and look at their part, refuses to admit they might have something to learn. There's no responsiveness. So assessment activity, individual interviews, review of pertinent information and documentation, collateral consults with family and friends, also mental health professionals and teachers, parent and child observations in the office and or at home, and psychological evaluations if necessary. I put this up here because I do all of that work within the Guardian statute. I believe the Guardian statute offers the ability to completely assess a family. I'm allowed access to all the medical records. I can see the kids. I can see them with the parent if I need to. And I'm allowed to give some interim recommendations once I've done completed all of my duties. So this is a chart. Patty, do I have 5 more minutes? This is a chart that shows a flow chart of the activity. So as you can see, we're going to see an alienation case basically walk through our doors with presentation of behavioral problems in the child. You're going to hear about it in your office from parents who say, my kid's not coming over anymore, or I can't get my child to go over to the other parent. I'm going to see it in my office with the child telling me all the reasons why they don't want to go see the other parent. So that's where we start. We look at, the next level is assessment of the alienation reaction, looking at the child. The other side of the flow chart is talking about looking at the parents. Case histories, interviews, collaterals, all of that. We also move into testing the child's relationship with the RP as rejected parent. So just so you know, people use this interchangeably, rejected parent and targeted parent. As an ad litem, the great thing is that as an ad litem, you can ask to have an observation of the child with the parent they're rejecting. That is where treatment and assessment come hand in hand, because it is so important to see how everyone in that system reacts to the ad litem saying, I really need to see little Annie with mom, and see them in the playroom and see how they interact, and you watch how the parents respond to you. You watch if they're willing to do that, and all the excuses that might be made to not bring little Annie in, and all of the fear that little Annie is going to have a complete and total meltdown, right? And then you look at little Annie when she comes in. Oftentimes little Annie doesn't have a complete total meltdown. Sometimes she does, but you can tell if she does, she's been oftentimes completely loaded up by the parent who's bringing her. But that is part of the assessment. That's part of the observations that need to be made to understand how the alienation is taking hold, how it's presenting itself. And that's so valuable because that will tell us what the intervention needs to look like. If we don't know how the alienation came to be, we don't know how to treat it. So at that point, you might think you've got a hybrid case because you see problems in kind of both the parents. Or you may think, no, I'm really seeing problems, the majority of the problems in one parent. And at this point, as an ad litem, I might make interim recommendations because I might want to see how everybody responds to a treatment plan. And so this is the rest of the flow chart. So at that point, as a guardian, I might make interim recommendations to get maybe just to get the visitation going again in a consistent way. They may be seeing the parent for lunches every other week instead of having full weekends. So I want to get them back into a regular routine, and then I need to see how everybody responds to that to know whether or not we can work with them without doing a transfer of residence. Can the parents learn and change? And if they can't, or if I think there are signs of personality disorders, I might send somebody for a psych eval. But if the therapy works, you'll see here, if the relationship remains stable and we get a court order that says, no, you don't get to decide whether or not you go back and forth. The judge says, the judge becomes a super parent, right? Judge says, you go every other weekend, Friday to Sunday. If that happens and we see improvement and everybody's doing their therapy and even favored parent is saying what they're supposed to say, which is, this is not a choice, you need to go on, then we might be able to stop there. If the relationship remains unstable and we can't make any change through interim recommendations, then the next option, as you can see the little arrow, is going to be a transfer of residence to get the attachment, the original attachment with the parent back in place. Let's see, I think that's about it. This is just another way of saying assessment and treatment work hand in hand. And then we get recommendations, and then hopefully that's in a court order. And then this is just a way of saying the court and the judge just takes the family in underneath some very strong constraints. It's what these families need in order to get back on track. And I can't do it, and lawyers can't do it, and we need a judge in a black robe to say, I'm dad right now, or I'm mom right now. Thank you, Dr. Baker.